afternoon. I'm Patricia Angelin of Alba Technique, and you are watching us on all of the emotions. What's on your emotional mind? Today, we have a follow-up question from, move this a little bit further back so you get a full view of my head, such as it is. We have a follow-up question from Rosette. We had been asked about what she could do going into a meeting, and I had suggested that she bring something warm to drink in with her, depending on what time of day the meeting was, of course, and because she was dealing with anxiety issues in regards to these meetings, that she make it a verveine or a chamomile or something that has naturally neuro-calming properties to it. And she has a follow-up, and she says, hey, one thing, sort of a coffee drinker. So I know you said I could use either, I could drink coffee, that's great, but what do you think are the differences in our bodies related to the control of our emotions? I wonder if you think about food too when you are about to public speak and emote. I can imagine healthy and light foods being proper. Okay, so that's a double-barreled question. I think that the first thing that has to be noted in regards to drink and food is that we may all be created equal, but we are not alike. And so some people are much more sensitive, to different foods, obviously. Some people have to eat gluten-free, some people have to, just lots of food restrictions. So let's handle the food thing first. Many people I know do not want to eat a heavy meal right before they speak. I found that people who tend to be shorter waisted, who have less space in between the lower ribs and of the waist to the hips, that they tend to have a need to eat either not at all right before a speaking engagement or quite lightly, because the feeling of fullness feels bloated to them. And then that can increase, feelings of anxiety. So if you are a person who is naturally shorter waisted, then yes, Rosette, then you would want to eat very, very lightly before something like that, or like several hours before even. I have never found that it's a problem for me. When I was young, I could eat like 3 state troopers and not have any kinds of problems with even doing voiceovers with sound of biological sounds, as we call them. And but it depends upon you as an individual. So I would say, as far as food goes, before you're going into something for which you're going to need a lot of energy quickly, protein. Whatever protein is the kind of protein that you can have that. I use cheese because it's easy to carry, it's quick, and it works for me. But I know many people who don't do dairy of any kind, whether it's goat, sheep, or cow. So you will have to figure out whether you're going to bring a strip of chicken, or if you are vegan, whether you need to bring some tofu. But protein, I would say. If you do eat a long time before the meeting, then the common wisdom, which I think still pertains, is that you want to make sure you have good carbs so that your energies are going to be sustained through that long meeting. And anything that you are finding as you experiment with your own body that supports your own body systems, like all of them, that makes you feel alert and not just, like you're beginning to go to sleep, especially for meetings at the end of the day. So that's what I would say about food to you for now. And in regards to coffee, in regards to drink, I'm a person who never drank a cup of coffee in my life until I was 25 years old and was working in Vienna, Austria. And then suddenly I realized that I needed to drink the coffee because it's world famous for coffee. So I started to drink it then, and I call coffee lattes my one vice. Don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I like to say. My one vice. So I am far from saying you shouldn't drink coffee. However, one of my dear friends, and indeed my own sister, over the years have found that they're extremely sensitive to caffeine. So if one is sensitive to caffeine, then it follows that bringing coffee into your meeting is going to increase your anxiety levels. It's going to, keep you kind of up and kind of fluttering. Now that would be the negative side of what the coffee does for those of us for whom it does not do that. And that for us, we're going to be able to just feel a little bit of an uplift, a little bit of an increase of energy. And if you want to drink on your coffee while you're in the meeting and sip on your coffee, that's absolutely fine. What I was talking about, Rosette, the last time we met, was bringing something in that you could drink that's warm. It is, as opposed to an iced coffee, bring in a hot, warm coffee, because the larynx, you want to kind of bathe the larynx and get the side of the throat to begin to release a little bit by exercising, if you will, the swallowing mechanism. So as I told you, you breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth when you finish drinking. Allow yourself to swallow, but allow it to be mindful. Allow it to be a mindful in-breath, letting the spine go up, maybe the head go back. You're going to be drinking, so you naturally go back, so there's a clear path down the esophagus, and you're holding the breath while you're drinking that little bit. So it really mimics what we've learned so much over the years. The yogis have always known, and other traditions as well, that if you take a deep breath in and then hold it for a few moments and then breathe out, that calms the nervous system down, that it calms the entire body system down. So Rosette, that was what I was suggesting, that you prepare for your meeting by making sure that you have something warm, really warm, in your hands, whatever the weather is going into the meeting. So you put your things down for the meeting, you're all organized, and then right before you start, now you've already done what I suggested the last time, which is you've removed yourself from all of the people, however that is practical to do. So when you come into that meeting with your coffee, in your case, you're going to be, before you begin to talk, you're going to give yourself that moment. You're going to allow yourself not to rush through the first moments of speaking. Everybody understands that people get dry mouths. Everybody will wait for you. Truly they will. They will wait for you to and you talk. And people really, they will honor you. They will wait for that. Even if everybody's in a hurry and everybody's kind of hyper and go, 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 they'll wait for you. It'll be fine. Let's see if I've answered all of that. She asked what in that question, I'd forgotten, what did I think are the differences? And I think the differences are in the uptake of the different chemicals from the drink that you choose into the body. If you have even the slightest sensitivity to caffeine and you're going into meetings that tend to make you nervous, and you love coffee, try really good decaffeinated coffee. For some of you, you might find that that's not even enough. I do know that one of my dear friends realized when her daughter was 4 years old and that she was scolding her too harshly for behaviors that were natural to a 4-year-old with lack of impulse control. In other words, she was treating the daughter's naughtiness in a way that she would have treated a 6-year-old when the child was just 4 and didn't have the kind of control that a 6-year-old would have. And she traced it. I think it's amazing that she realized this. She traced it to the fact that she did this, that she was more emotionally reactive and angry when she had just had a coffee latte. And she loved coffee lattes, and we used to go for coffee lattes all the time. But she connected it to that she would get energetically like up, and when she gets energetically up, she gets snappy. She goes. And so she would be snapping, this poor sweet little 4-year-old who had naughty behavior but couldn't help it at that stage of child development. And so she called me up and she said, Pat, I've just realized I have to give up coffee, and I really hate it because I'm snapping at my children. And I traced it. I snap at my children after I've had coffee. And in the same situation, if I haven't had coffee, I don't snap at them. So the point of this is that we are all individual as to what kind of an effect the biochemicals and the uptakes of caffeine. And she found eventually that she couldn't even have decaf coffee unless it was like a special occasion, a special treat. And I just think it's absolutely amazing because I could drink coffee forever and right before bed and I'd still be able to sleep. But she would be like a cat on a hot tin roof if she would take sometimes, if other things are happening in her life, she has to be really, really diligent about caffeine in pretty much any form. So it's all about learning to know thyself. Know thyself. Know your own soma, your own body. Trial and error. Try meetings with the coffee. Try meetings with caffeine-less coffee. Try meetings with, I guess, maybe the caffeine in a soda. Find out about yourself. And then you might find that you have to give up some of the things you like. But, you know, that's life. We all have limitations. Okay, so I think that I answered that. I answered food, and I answered caffeine, and tea. Yeah, I think the same thing has to do with it's, if you're going to do a tisane, if you're going to do an infusion, what we usually call a tea, do be aware that tea leaves, real tea, has rather a lot of caffeine in it. That's why the Irish, and the English and the Sri Lankans and the Indians and the Chinese have for, centuries been using tea as a stimulant. And many, if not most of us, have a real slump at about 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon. Right now, actually, I could use some tea. And so that's how tea time came to be somewhere between the hours of 3 and 5:30, because most people have their slump, at that point in the day, kind of no matter what they did or didn't do, earlier in the day. It's a body clock thing, evidently. And I was at a cocktail party once many years ago, and I talked to a doctor who was doing caffeine research. And I said, how come I can drink an entire pot of strong tea, Irish tea, with milk in it, and be absolutely fine, not be jittery, not be, anxious, sleep like a baby, but give me one 10-ounce cup of normal American coffee and you could probably rocket me to the moon. And he said, because they're metabolized differently. They're both caffeine, and he said, actually, strong tea probably has more caffeine than the coffee does. He didn't say probably because he knew the measurements. I don't. And he said, they're metabolized in the body differently. So some people can drink tea and can't drink coffee. Some people can drink coffee and can't drink tea if they are, their bodies are utilizing the caffeine differently. So the answer, Rosette, is it's trial and error. Other times we're talking about teas, as I said, the more, not soporific, because we don't want you to go to sleep in a meeting, but the vervain or verbena, the chamomile, there are many others, lavender. I mean, in the medieval times, they drank a lot of lavender tea. And lavender, we know, smells wonderful, and we also know from studies that it acts directly on the nervous system to calm it. But there are a lot of different chemical tisanes, which are not really teas, but in the United States we frequently call them teas. So whatever you like, whatever tastes good, mindfully drink it, let it bathe your throat. Allow yourself to be caring for yourself. So if you have any further question and I haven't been clear enough, Rosette, we can tackle it next time. Okay. I have a question here about, I've seen that you, Patricia, have a history with audiobooks. I've been wanting to dip my toes into that side of the industry, but I'm scared. Any tips? Well, we're going to be scared no matter what we go into, because it's new. And that's what our nervous systems do. If something's new, they prepare us for, gotta be on point, gotta be thinking about all kinds of things, gotta really be prepared to attack it, and I don't know if I know enough, and do I need to know more? So your feelings in that way are completely understandable, Katie. But earlier you had asked a question specifically about audiobooks, and having attended supposedly a master class that did not give much information. It was more of a selling kind of a thing, and that's life, you know. Everybody in COVID situation is trying to do things differently, and some of them don't give as much as I think the people intended. So I want to give you all one really wonderful tip for doing audiobooks, which we call long-form narration. And it's getting to be big business. And something called Audible now, which is in its infancy when I was doing this. So you don't even have to be a member of SAG-AFTRA now to do audio book work, which makes me go, yeah. But on the other hand, you hope that you will become a member of the guilds and the unions for professional actors, including for broadcast. But meanwhile, you can just get some training, and that you can use the fact that much of that work right now is currently non-union. So here's the tip. When you're doing long-form narration, I have noticed that most actors who try to get into it have a tendency to emphasize the adjectives and the adverbs. We want to do the describing of everything, and that's what kind of interests us as actors. You want to emphasize the verb in each sentence, because that's the action, and that's what takes the story forward. So that would be my tip on audiobooks for you. And then so my giving you this tip should decrease your anxiety right there, because you have something specific that you can work on and do. I would also recommend a name to you, a woman who teaches long-form narration and who is wonderful narrator. And her name is Robin Miles, R-O-B-I-N, M as in Mary, I, L as in Larry, E as in elephant, S as in snake. Robin Miles, and she's a New Yorker, and she's been doing audiobooks as a narrator for many, many, many years. And she's also a real kick-ass teacher. So, I would just look Robin Miles up and get in touch with her and tell her Pat Angelin sent you, if you're able to get in touch with her. I see here that one of our listeners and watchers says, I have found that a warm London fog is a nice substitute in place of espresso when I don't want as much caffeine. It's a latte with Earl Grey tea. Well, thank you for that suggestion. That is very nice. Now, it would also smell beautiful, because Earl Grey tea has a citrus peel in it called bergamot or bergamot, and it makes it smell wonderful. It makes me break out in hives. So I love the smell of this stuff. So I love when somebody else in the room is drinking it, because the citrus gives a little bit of an olfactory lift. But this is the kind of thing I mean, that you have to really try different things. So espresso with Earl Grey, be 2 forms of caffeine, because Earl Grey definitely has caffeine in it. But it would have the added advantage of smelling just really, really wonderful. And I think we need to use all the little little tools we can get and find out what works for us. Oh, Luke Hoekstra, I greet you. I see that you are watching us from the Netherlands. This is so wonderful. I hope that Alba Technique is able to come to you in the Netherlands in 2021 when I go to Ireland and to London, and I'm hoping to, and I will definitely be in touch and come to see you, Luke. And of course your wonderful son, who I know is an actor. All right, another question. So there's one with audiobooks. The question is this: in this current political climate, many feel anxiety whenever the topic of the election is brought up. Yes, and for those of you who are not in the United States, we have a presidential and we also have people in Congress who are up for seats in either the Senate or the House of Representatives, which is staggered in different years. And with the what you don't hear outside the United States is because with our system of what we call checks and balances. We have the legislative part of government, we have the executive part of government, and we have our Supreme Court, which is completely separate and supposed to be apolitical. But part of the current climate is that absolutely everything has been politicized now. And it's not only been politicized, but it's been partisan politicized. And it's not only been partisan politicized, it's been angrily partisan politicized. So we have right now in the political climate that the querent is talking about, we right now have a Supreme Court justice seat that is in, what can we call it? Fighting about. It's a contentious process for filling the seat for one of our Supreme Court justice who was highly esteemed by all, who died very recently, and this is all part of the political climate. And so the question is, they may feel anxiety. Well, I have to say, duh. The entire world is in pandemic. The entire world is feeling anxiety to one level or another, constantly underlying everything we do. I'm not excluding myself. Even answering this question, I realize I'm holding my breath. So I better breathe, hadn't I? And the election, the querent is probably talking about is the presidential election. It's not the only one going on right now, but that's the one that's getting all of the news and is so wildly contentious. And the question itself is, what is the best way to combat this anxiety while still educating ourselves about the current election? It depends upon your personality. I know that sounds like it's no answer, so I won't stop there. I am extremely sensitive in my neurosystem. I have almost a superpower oral sensitivity. And we all have some kind of things that we call superpowers. And when we're working with Alba Technique in person, I'm able to help you pinpoint what yours are. And one of mine is definitely hearing. So I need to, during a period of extreme stress in my own life and the current pandemic, and I added to that the stress of the elections, I need to very, very carefully limit what I'm watching and what I'm listening to. Now, there's also, pardon me, a thing, what is it, FOMO, fear of missing out. Yes, FOMO, fear of missing out, which is applied to the topical situation in life. And many people think, I have to know what's going on. The world is changing all the time, and I have to know what the news is. I have to know what he said, and I have to know what he said, and I have to know what she said. And, well, I'm here to tell you, men and women, you really don't. Everyone survived very well. In fact, I think everyone survived much better before the 24-hour news cycle. So don't let yourself get sucked into the need to do the 24-hour news cycle. Don't let it control you. Don't. 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 If listening to the politicians and watching the politicians, if you observe in your own body that you are getting scared, more scared about the state of the world when you say, listen to a debate, I would say that if you don't have to listen to the debate, don't listen to the debate. If you find that what's coming into your eyes bothers you, don't watch the debate. Only listen to the debate. You can do either or. You don't have to do both. You don't have to know everything everybody said in order to be informed. There are many platforms for excellent information, and find the ones that you trust. And the ones that you trust, you can stick with. Just make sure you're not ghettoizing yourself into one point of view or another. But at this point, with what I call the COVID anxiety and the COVID anger, we're finding ourselves very reactive emotionally. And that is everybody. It's even me. So you can stay informed by observing what happens to your body when you see an image of one of the politicians, when you hear a sound bite of a politician, when you see both together and hear both together, and notice in your own body what triggers you more in either anxiety and or in anger. If you can only see the print face of a politician, and that is enough to trigger you with fear about the state of the world, then you need to not be looking at the face of that particular politician. And you will know enough to be able to vote. You will know enough to be able to think through the issues much better if your fear and your anger are not being constantly triggered. And that's going to be different for everybody, because some people have it's like pain. Some people, I guess, yeah, that's a good image, right? It's all like pain. Some people have a much higher pain threshold than others. They can endure more pain. Well, I think the political climate is the same way. Some people can, oh my goodness, just really take quite a lot of it, and they're interested and they're engaged, and it doesn't make them overly emotional. It's just, they're thinking it's just life. And they would say to me, Pat, why do you have so much problem with this? Indeed, even when I was young, I will share with you that one of my dear friends, who was a real New Yorker of the old school, and he's gone now, but he called me Patrishka. He said, Patrishka, why do you get so upset about this? It's the best circus in town. It's fun. It's wonderful. There's nothing as entertaining. It's three rings, all there for you, all there for free. Patrishka, enjoy it. It's fun. It's theater. Well, Milton, aloft, I've never been able to manage that. So again, look at yourself. Breathe in through the nose as I taught you. Breathe out through the mouth. Make sure you stay in your body. Don't let them pull you off your own center. And allow yourself not to partake of as much of it as is going out there. It's constantly being thrown at us. Constantly, and I think that the best thing to do is cut down on your news feed so that you're not constantly having images thrown at you. You're not constantly having sound bites thrown at you. I do think we have to, each one of us, make some decisions so that we are doing less of listening to the politicians. All right, very good. I hope that you will all bring in some more questions for next time, and we will have on the Alba Technique page and the Alba Technique Instagram page, when we will again be live for all the emotions. And thank you very, very, very much for joining us. And I think I'll say goodbye to you for today and wish you great peace and great joy and just the right amount of calmness. Thank you so much for being with us.